Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. The topic of this 10-minute moan is news from Holyrood that the SNP and the Scottish Greens both voted against adding a Scottish grooming gang inquiry into a new bill that has just been passed, which is called the Victims Bill. And this is incredible because this bill, as a normal bill, gets presented to Parliament. It's then discussed where others can add amendments and additions to it if they so wish, and each of those amendments are voted on by the Parliament. And one amendment to this bill has been totally ignored by the SNP and the Scottish Greens. And that was a part where the Tory party amendment would have given Scotland the same as the rest of the UK, where they have the ability to have a grooming gang inquiry. Now, this is not known to many, but the grooming gang inquiry that has been offered by Labour, but nothing's happened, does not take in Scotland because it's a devolved power. So the Scottish Parliament have got the ability to have the same type of inquiry in Scotland as the other parts of the United Kingdom. However, you would think something as commonsensical as this would be voted by all parties, by all human beings in the Parliament. It's not the case in Scotland because SNP and the Greens decided not to vote for it, and indeed voted against it. And this is quite shocking, but there are other amendments to the bill which were also voted against, which were ensuring that victims were informed of a decision not to prosecute someone. Now, you would kind of think that was common sense. If you made a complaint in an alleged crime against anybody, you would think, as the complainer, that you would be told if the decision was taken not to prosecute or not. Also, they denied the amendment which would have given all victims notification when plea deals were done between the defence and the prosecution lawyers. And also, they failed to deliver a real Susan's Law that would mean no body, no release. Now, this law means that the murderers will still be able to be early released even if they fail and refuse to notify the Crown where bodies are buried. And this was named after someone who was murdered, where the guy was able to get early release despite still not given the whereabouts of the victim. These are incredible things that anybody would think to vote against. But we're not talking about normal people. We're talking about the Scottish Government, led by the SNP and followed up, now that they're not a majority, by the Greens, to make sure these very common sense laws were not passed. I'll leave you to speculate the whys. But two such decrepit parties as the SNP and the Scottish Greens, failing in the most simple and the most humane of the four that were rejected, being an inquiry into grooming gangs in Scotland, is awful and is terrible, terrible governance. If I was in that place, I would push for that at every single opportunity. But we have the majority of that place, seats taken up by the SNP and the Greens, who obviously don't want a grooming gang inquiry in Scotland. And I am not prepared, under my current legal position, where I face court tomorrow, for us as a charge, to make any further comment at present as to why that may be true. But I find it disgusting that any human being, never mind a parliamentarian and a politician for the SNP or the Greens, that any human being would vote against such a thing. When we're past the point of listening and being gaslit, that Scotland was immune to grooming gangs. We're well past that point. So to deny any inquiry into such a thing leaves me and many others scratching their heads. I can't believe these people have voted against it. But the bill itself that has passed, without some of the most crucial elements, does give you some positives for Scottish justice in terms of when we had people's life imprisonment on the line by a majority of 8 to 7, possible in a 15-man person jury. That's now been lifted to 10. So to get a guilty verdict, we're now almost in line with the rest of society. And one thing that was very, very unusual about Scottish law was the 3 verdicts available, which were guilty, not guilty, or not proven, is now down to 2. The not proven verdict will be removed from jurors' possible verdicts. Now, some might say that makes sense, but after a bit of a discussion many months ago with Thomas Ross KC, who is against the removal of the not proven verdict, it kind of made sense, his stance. Because a jury are not actually asked if someone is guilty or not guilty. They are asked if the case has been proven or not proven. So if we are to go down, and we are now going down to 2 outcomes, the most common would be keep not proven and actually throw out not guilty, because the jury is asked, does the evidence beyond all reasonable doubt prove that the crime has been committed? So not guilty should have been the one that should have been dropped, because that is actually what we're being asked. Has it been proven? So if you were to rewrite a full new judiciary system, you would probably have proven or not proven as the verdicts from a jury, instead of the traditional and normal across the world guilty or not guilty. Because you don't know if anybody is guilty or not guilty unless you were there. So what you've been asked as a jury is it proven or not? So Thomas Ross's opinion on that is actually the common sense line, and not proven should still have been there. And if you wanted to cut to 2, then not guilty should have been the one to fling out. But the absolutely abysmal thing out of this whole process, there's some things there that you can debate and can talk about, like the Susan's Law with no body, no release, informing victims where plea bargains are struck, and these sort of things. These could be debated either way, I suppose. But the fact that the amendment was put on the table to introduce a grooming gang inquiry to a bill that suggests it's victim-led, and for that to be declined by anybody, is an absolute travesty. And I see no reason for anybody, any normal person, anybody that sees these crimes as despicable, would actually press that button to vote against such an amendment to any bill at any time in any parliament. These people that are already held as despicable are just making my decision to be evidently more correct. You are a shame to Scotland. You're a shame to the place called Scottish Parliament. When you can't give victims, when you're arguing about a victims bill, for goodness sake, and you can't allow the victims of grooming gangs in Scotland the inquiry, which is the least that they deserve. We can't just shut our eyes and cross our fingers and hope this sort of stuff goes away. We need to find out why it happened, who was involved, who helped cover it up, who helped make sure many of the cases never seen the light of day, and certainly why the Scottish people deserve to know why the majority of that House voted against having a Scottish grooming gangs inquiry, to give us and the victims, more importantly the victims of grooming gangs, the same respite, is that even a word to use? The same common decency that's been shown to folk in other areas of the United Kingdom. So if you want others to see this video and see how shameful the Scottish Greens and the SNP are, then give this video a thumbs up, a share, or put your comments below. That'll help the algorithm and drive it into more people's timelines. If you've not already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the notification bell to make sure you know when I put out videos. But more importantly than all that, unless you're the type of person who was involved with grooming gangs, helped cover up grooming gangs, or voted against a public inquiry for the victims in Scotland of grooming gangs, shame on you, then not you. But everyone else, have a great day. Cheery bye now.